medical cannabis industry is a rush to try to make money off of people. You know, $300 to attend an industry-friendly event, $500 for an all-day seminar. Well, you know what? Let's just have an opportunity to get some people together to talk about medical cannabis, to learn about Pennsylvania's emerging medical program, and let's make it free. And that's what Carol, her vision was. That is what has brought us here today. And Carol, I cannot thank you enough for having the opportunity to participate in the Health and Wellness Fair. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Patrick Nightingale. I'm a partner at Cannabis Legal Solutions, one of the sponsors of the fair. We have a booth over against the wall. I'm also the executive director of the Pennsylvania Medical Cannabis Society. We also have a booth next to Cannabis Legal Solutions. And I have been involved in the effort to bring medical cannabis here to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania since 2009. I remember in 2009 when the first medical marijuana bill was introduced in Harrisburg, I naively thought, oh my God, here we go. We've got a medical cannabis bill and the rest is history. All of a sudden we're going to join what was then 14 other states with medical marijuana law. I did not expect it to take over 8 years before we would now be on the verge of having licensed cultivation and processing centers, licensed dispensaries, physicians registered with the program, and patients who now are on the verge of having access to medicinal cannabis here in Pennsylvania in a 100% legal fashion. I don't know about the rest of you. Some of you are younger than me, some of you are older than me. I'm 48 years old, but I grew up in a culture, I grew up in the just say no, in the war on drugs. I was a former prosecutor, and I can guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, that if anyone in the district attorney's office between 1996 and 2002 found out that I was a recreational or medicinal cannabis user behind the scenes, I would have lost my job and likely not been able to find another job in the legal community. Now here we are in 2018, and I'm teaching the district attorney's office about the medical cannabis law. I'm engaged with the district attorney's office about patient privacy and issues such as DUI and firearm possession, and boy have the times changed. We no longer have to be worried about being stigmatized. We no longer have to worry about having our lives ruined, our jobs ruined, our families taken away from us, merely because we prefer to treat with an all-natural, non-toxic, non-addictive, 100% safe treatment alternative. One of the things that we see a lot going on right now is, our state, our country is in the midst of an opioid crisis. 20,000 people died from a prescription opioid overdose in 2017. Do you know how many people have ever died from a cannabis overdose? No. Not in the entire history of the human race. It is impossible to overdose on cannabis. And trust me, some of us have tried. And that gives us the ability to say, not only do we think that this is an effective medical treatment alternative for critically ill patients, but we know it's safe. We know it doesn't kill. We know that some of the worst side effects may be a little sleepiness, maybe a touch of anxiety if it's the wrong product or the wrong strain for you. Withdrawal symptoms may include going a couple of days with a sleep interruption, but that's it. It is not physically addictive. It's not going to kill you from withdrawal symptoms like an alcohol addiction or an opioid addiction may do. And what we are seeing across the country is that rates of prescription opioid overdose deaths are dropping by over 25% in states with effective medical cannabis programs. One of our qualifying conditions is chronic neuropathic pain. Now, until we have medical marijuana accessible for chronic pain, what did physicians treat their patients with? What was their only option? Their only option was highly addictive opioids. That was the only quiver that those physicians had available to them, and now we're giving them a natural alternative so that patient can make a decision for themselves. What's going to work better for me? Do I prefer the opioids that I have been using that give me a wide variety of collateral problems such as digestive disorder and things of that nature? Or might I be interested in trying an all-natural treatment alternative? Now we have that available for Pennsylvania patients. And for that, ladies and gentlemen, I am so terribly excited, and I'm glad that we're all here and ready to take advantage of this emerging marketplace. Now, where do we stand in Pennsylvania? Well, as you know, or as you may know, we have 12 licensed cultivation and processing facilities in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. 2 are located here in southwestern Pennsylvania, Pure Penn and McKeesport, Agromet in Greene County, and Cresco Yeltro, which is right outside of our region. They're located in Brookville. We have 27 licensed dispensaries. Each of them can have up to 3 retail storefronts. Here in the city of Pittsburgh, we've got a number of dispensary locations, and we've got 1 dispensary that's ready to open its doors and have products as early as February 15th, and we're going to be hearing from Sam from Saliva Wellness in just a little bit and talk about what they're going to be bringing and the type of products that you can expect. Physicians are now registering with the program. One of our prime sponsors today is Compassionate Certification Centers. You'll be hearing from Dr. Brian Donner in just a little bit to talk about the patient registration process and what you can expect if you contact Compassionate Certification Centers to get a recommendation and then ultimately get your card from the Department of Health. We have right now 10,000 patients that have registered with the Department of Health. Over 1,000 patient identification cards have been issued. We have 17 qualifying conditions, and that list of qualifying conditions can expand as early as May of this year. The advisory board has been formed, they have been meeting, and the advisory board is well aware that there are additional conditions that patients are eager to have added to the list. So if you are interested in medical cannabis and your diagnosis is not one of the 17 qualifying conditions, contact the Department of Health, contact the advisory board, watch for press releases from the Department of Health, follow all of our social media sites and all of our email lists, and we'll get that information to you. Any patient that has a question about Pennsylvania's medical cannabis program, you are free to contact me. Like I said, am an attorney who have been working in this field, and I am dedicated and passionate about getting patients accurate, reliable information about their rights, about their risks in becoming a Pennsylvania medical cannabis patient. So at some point in time, please stop by the Cannabis Legal Solutions booth, grab one of the cards for myself, my partners, and reach out with any questions, and I assure you that I'll do my best to give you the most accurate and reliable information about Pennsylvania's medical cannabis law. We are, of course, in flux right now. This is new to Pennsylvania, and we have lots of questions. One of the big issues that has come up recently is an issue of patient privacy. How can we ensure that patients, are not otherwise stigmatized or subject to prosecution or additional law enforcement intervention merely for being a registered patient? We just received direction from the Department of Health that they will not make the patient registry available to law enforcement. And that is critical. It is critical for a couple of reasons. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. You're a registered patient. You are driving in the middle of the day, you have not consumed any cannabis, and you roll through a stop sign and you're pulled over by law enforcement. If law enforcement had access to that patient registry, that innocuous little traffic incident, which may result in a warning, could turn into a DUI investigation. And we do not want Pennsylvania patients unnecessarily harassed, unnecessarily detained, or unnecessarily affected by negative interactions with law enforcement. So taking this information out of the law enforcement accessible database is absolutely critical. It also protects Pennsylvanians who own firearms. This has been a big issue that has come up recently, the Second Amendment rights of Pennsylvania medical cannabis patients. It is illegal under federal law for any consumer of cannabis, whether a patient, a recreational consumer, or a black market consumer, to possess a firearm. But the likelihood of the ATF or some other federal agency initiating an investigation to prosecute an otherwise lawful cardholder, medicinal cardholder here in Pennsylvania is extremely remote. It is 100% legal under Pennsylvania law for a registered patient to possess a firearm. The Pennsylvania State Police will not be coming for your guns. The Attorney General's office will not be coming for your guns. The City of Pittsburgh Police, McKeesport Police, Braddock Police, Clareton Police, Butler Police, Westmoreland County Detectives, whomever. No state law enforcement agency has jurisdiction to enforce federal law, and possession of a firearm under Pennsylvania law is 100% legal. Moving past that, there are a couple of strange little federal and state push and pull relative to firearms. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty right now. Reach out to me if you have a specific question about your firearms rights as a registered patient in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Some good news. Now, I don't know how many of you know what Pennsylvania's DUI law is relative to marijuana. It's what we call a zero tolerance law. It means that I could go to Denver tomorrow, legally smoke marijuana or consume marijuana in Denver, and then 2 weeks from now in Pittsburgh, I could get a DUI for the inactive THC metabolites from my legal consumption in Colorado. With registered patients, however, the District Attorneys Association has promulgated guidance to suggest that the threshold is actual impairment. So instead of just inactive THC metabolites, law enforcement will be instructed that they must find signs of actual impairment before requesting a chemical test to determine if there are active THC metabolites in a patient's blood. Obviously, this is something that's going to continue to develop. If a patient is prosecuted for DUI, you will have to just see how that plays out moving forward. But it's an issue that our prosecutors are aware of. They know it's the law. They're not trying to violate the spirit of the law, and they will be working with law enforcement in order to get that information to law enforcement. And if necessary, someone from the district attorney's office told me, well, maybe when we start withdrawing charges, they'll get the point. So, in that respect, I feel that we have good patient protection across the board. Patient privacy protection, patient law enforcement protection, patient firearm protection. That's about what I wanted to say to bring you up to speed with the current status of the emerging medical cannabis industry. If you have any questions, once we finish our brief little speaker session today, I'm free. I'll answer questions here. I'll answer questions outside. Any questions that you might have. What I'd like to do right now is to bring up some of our speakers. And the first person that I wanted to introduce you to, Samuel Britz of Saliva Wellness. Saliva Wellness is a dispensary operating here in the Squirrel Hills section of the city of Pittsburgh, and they will be operational and ready to have products as early as February 15th, when we have been told by the cultivation facility, Cresco Yeltra, that there will be products made available to dispensaries. So, Sam wanted to have a chance to talk about his new business venture, and with that,
Patrick, certainly. A lot of you I've already talked to, so you kind of know the spiel that we've gone through. It's been a long journey for Saliva. Like Patrick said, there's probably not 500 applicants. Out of those 500 applicants, it boiled down to, I would like to say, the 27 best. In Pittsburgh, there's probably going to be about 5 dispensaries when the market finally matures. But right now, on February 15th, we will be the only dispensary open in the greater Pittsburgh area. Cresco Yelta up in Butler might be open, but for sure in the greater Pittsburgh area we'll be there. We've talked to a lot of people. I'm sorry I didn't get your name. It's people like Maria. Maria has a great story. She's going through cancer right now, and this really means a lot to her. And that's what we're about. That's what Dr. Garner's about. And so we are ready. When you come to our facility, what you can expect, you'll come in, you'll first meet with a pharmacist. You'll already have your recommendation from the doctor. You'll spoke with them, you'll have your card. You can't come in without the certification card from the Department of Health. You'll come in, you'll sit down, you'll talk to a pharmacist. We'll get you in our system. After he finds it, hopefully as it matures, we're going to find out what really works with the 17 diseases. Right now it's kind of anecdotal information, but eventually as we gather information across our dispensaries, other dispensaries across the state, we'll find out what really starts working for you. I can tell you a story. A girl that we hired, her daughter was born with a hole in her brain, and the left side has a problem getting information to the right side of her brain. Her story is so compelling, it's unbelievable. She had seizures. She was on seizure medicines, and she was withdrawn, sitting at the table. You can visualize that picture. That girl now is, so she picked up her family, went to Colorado, and she is immersed herself into this until where she learned, where she figured out what was the best thing for her daughter over a 5-year period. She worked in dispensary, she worked in grows, and now her daughter is a straight A student. She came back home. She's going to be working for us. I'm really, really proud to have her on our staff. She came back home where her family is, and straight A student, graduated from college, and it's being it's about all you here that have problems, and hopefully we'll be able to give you that solution. Rather than talk a whole lot about this, I'd rather, if you have some questions, I'd like to answer those questions for you. What to expect when you're in this dispensary, whatever it is you want to hear, or whatever you want to ask, I'll take those questions right now.
What are the, can you describe the oils and ointments that'll be available? Oils and any kind of cream or oil or lotion?
Now, on the 15th, obviously, there's only going to be one vendor, one grow in the whole state that's going to have product. Right after that, that's Cresco Yalta, Standard Farms in, I think out around Harrisburg Way. We'll have product after that. So it's going to take a couple months for the market to mature and for the product to mature. Okay? In the beginning, there'll be vapes, there'll be concentrates, there'll be oils, there'll be pills. Okay? Everything that we're allowed to offer, we will pretty much have. Okay? The problem is the spectrum of them isn't going to be as much as we would like. The CBD, the ratio of CBD to THC, you're looking at 1-to-1, 10-to-1, maybe 20-to-1 early March. But in the beginning, we're going to be limited. You're going to have to test the product. We're going to keep information on you. We're going to keep track of what you're doing. You can do it yourself too. But we're going to have a website that you'll be able to go to and track the medicine that you're taking, and try till you get it down right. But in the beginning, it's going to be slow. The product's going to be slow in coming out. But we'll have everything. We'll have a little bit of everything across the brands or across the lines. But all the the CBD to THC mixtures are going to be slow in rolling out.
Those 17 diseases that you're going to be taking care of, can we know what those are for a list or something?
Well, on our table, okay, we have on one side is how you sign up to get the card. On the other side of it has the 17 diseases. I'm sure Dr. Donner is going to address some of those things, but all 17 of those diseases are on the card. If you didn't get a card, didn't stop by our table, please stop by our table. Our plan at Salivo is that on the 18th, we plan on getting our final inspection from the Department of Health, and we'll be in business. We won't have product until the 15th. Okay, so when I asked you guys to sign up on the email list outside, all right, because what we want you to do is we want you to come in. We want you to talk to the pharmacist. We want you to talk to the customer care advisor. So that first day when that product comes, I think it's going to be really, really, really crazy. Okay, and we're going to have like a little TSA line for the people that already signed up first. Okay, and I am not a clinical person. I'm a CPA by profession, but we will have a pharmacist on staff all the time. There's always a medical professional, either an RN or a PA or something at any site that we have, or any dispensary in all the state.
What are the side effects? So you have 40 degrees that you know will hurt.
I mean, anything that you do, okay, there could be side effects, okay? If you've never, ever used marijuana before and have no experience to it, you just don't come in here, get something with 70% THC, and I've seen it. I've seen people like this.
Go to work. Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, and it's true. I mean, if you're not familiar, you better start with a low dose. and slowly but surely, you know, work your way up. Yes, you can have a reaction to it. You can have a reaction to anything. People have a reaction to the penis or whatever. So yeah, I mean that is a possibility. But as Patrick has said, no one has ever overdosed. You might have anxiety, might be something from it, but you will not die from it. You may be uncomfortable, but for the most part, you're going to be fine with the product. Just take it slow as you go.
I mean, my big concern is our daughter's on the side. So our epileptologist is supposed to be on this physician, which me personally, I'd rather wait for him because, you mix with marijuana contraindicates with medications that I know about that. So therefore, we have issues. I need an immediate point of contact. Do you understand what I'm saying? When you're so complex to begin with medically, and you're having seizures daily to start with, we're hoping that ours, I haven't gotten, he told me he was going to become certified, hopefully soon as not. So, if I have somebody like him that knows my daughter very well, and he says she should be on marijuana, that's fine, but I would have a specific point of contact. You start something and then.
Well, here, okay, and I think this is the breakdown in the law. Okay, and I'm going to address your question, but there's something first. I don't think it's right that the doctor is given the recommendation and then he loses sight of that patient. Okay, in your case, where it's very, very, very important that that doctor is interacting. Now you can go to that doctor. That doctor can call our dispensary, talk to the pharmacist. Okay. No, I don't think you should come in and just listen to a patient care advisor or something like that. I think you need to have your doctor talk to the pharmacist, work those things out.
But I just read online, and I don't know how true this is, Heather made it better, that CHP and UPMC will not allow your physicians to be. I'm only that, but I know AGH,
That is-
I know AGH is. But what I'm saying is when you've got a child that's very complex, I just can't walk into your dispensary wherever and say, well, we'll take me. I need, because the true medicine will have severe, you know what I mean? You gotta rush all
And
this
I
stuff.
tell you what, as a caregiver, that is absolutely positively a concern you need to have. And again, that's between the the physician, and the pharmacist in my, because your physician, your caring physician right now, really probably doesn't have the knowledge of marijuana that other people have. The pharmacist that's going to be in our group, I mean, he's been probably over a year. I mean, this process of getting to 215 has been a long, hard process. He has been studying this, okay? And he will probably be helping the physician. We are also on the 10th, we're going to have a seminar for physicians to come to. The physicians need educated, patients need education.
I can help you address this question.
Yeah, and Dr. Donner's he'll probably be better at it, okay? But there's a lot of education from the patient, the dispensary, the pharmacist, and the doctor. And maybe you want to jump in now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and sorry guys, but my name is Dr. Brian Donner. I'm the CEO of Compassionate Certification.
I will be formally introducing you shortly.
Sometimes these clinical questions are hard for non-clinical folks to answer. So I'm not a microphone go. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, good. So organizations like ours are set up to help patients such as you or your family. So our physicians are trained in medical cannabis. We've been certified through the state, and not only are we there to help you go through the certification process, but we're there to help you with support and ongoing with your care plan. So outlining the appropriate medication, the frequency, the route of administration, and then to work with you in an ongoing fashion, and also work with your physicians and everything, okay? So you won't be just stuck going to see somebody at the dispensary. We're trying to build in multiple layers that we can help patients with this decision and through this process, and not only immediately, but ongoing too.
But I'm just saying, if something happens, severe side effects occur, first thing you're going to do is drug levels. Whatever.
Is there gonna what? I'm sorry?
First thing I'm going to want to do is drug levels. I'm going to call my epileptologist and get them done immediately. You know what I mean? I just think it's one thing if you have an illness and you're not on multiple drugs. And these drugs interact with each other on basis. Generally, like I said, when I leave here Monday, my first question is our doctors are just, are you certified?
would just add on to it on top of that. There's a difference between coming certified and registered with the state versus being a clinician who's been educated and understands what we can so far, right? When I get up and talk to you guys a little bit, that's what I'm going to try to explain to you about our organization. We tried to build our organization around the fact that we're not only here to help you get your certification, but to work with you just like any other medical specialist does, right? So if that requires me working with your neurologist or your pediatrician, we will do that. I've worked with doctors on this already. I've worked with pain doctors so that we can, just like your orthopedic doctor might work with your cardiac doctor before surgery, in a very similar way. We're able to do that.
But I mean, if what I'm saying is on a given day, if something or the side effects were severe, I would probably be more inclined to call our rheumatologist and say, well, you know, I probably couldn't call you up and say, hey, write me a script, I get those done today.
Right, so I wouldn't necessarily say that. We function like any other physician's office, right? So I tell all of my patients, I've had patients call me already about dosing, even if it's just on CBD-based products and things like that. So absolutely, that's why we're here. We have nursing staff, we have our physicians, we have a number you can call and you can get a hold of us. Maybe it's not something, maybe your neurologist needed to do this and not me. I can then relay that information to them and we can work together. So you're not going to be left out in the cold on this. And at least I can promise with our organization that you're not going to.
And the same thing, I mean, and we know each other. We're all part of a group, okay? And we're all trying to launch an industry, okay? And yes, that's a major concern. But Dr. Donner's been studying this for a while. Alex is our pharmacist. He's been studying this for a while. There's no, so it's going to be the combination of your physician, our pharmacist, the recommending physician, all collaborating, okay, to find a solution for you. And yes, you've got a very complicated case, okay, and you better take it slow. And you better advise, be getting advised from all three of that triangle.
Absolutely. And there's no Bible now that we can open up and know how to do this, right? So I can tell you right now, I want you to take 650 milligrams of Tylenol every 6 hours, and I know that's going to be a safe and effective dose, right? With medical cannabis, we know the science is there. We do have some research. We can support that. But are we there yet with all those specific answers? The answer is no, right? So the best way to have this type of a program is that we all work together on this. The doctors, the patients, the dispensaries, the nurseries, right? So we can all gather information, share it, process it, and then make sure that we benefit people in the future too. So I just don't want anybody to think that they're going to be left out in the cold with no one to help support them in their medical marijuana program.
Like I said, if you were to start to take it to whatever illness you may have, and that's the only thing you're on, it's just so hard to run so many drugs that are so compelling and have side effects to begin with, and then you're adding something new on that no one knows a lot about to begin with. I'm not worried about trying the product and how it's going to interact with all the other.
But we do this every day anyway, and not only that, we give you stuff that we know is bad for you. And we know can be very toxic, right? So when you look at it from that standpoint, right, I think when you're talking about medical cannabis, like Patrick and Sam said, the safety profile of this medication is truly remarkable. There is no toxic dose. We have not found that yet. We know it doesn't cause respiratory depression, right? We know medication interactions can be minimal. We know that people with liver disease or kidney disease process this just fine, right? So when you look at it as a safety profile compared to modern medicine today, it's truly, truly remarkable. Are we where we need to be yet? No. We're going there, and as we all work together through this, we're going to gather these answers, and we're going to be able to help more people through this process too. But just know that you'll never be alone on this. From me to you, I can tell you that for sure, okay?
But what's the difference with a physician to be certified?
Yeah. And I'm going to go, whenever Sam's done, I'm going to go through the certification process and the whole state process, and everything like that, and I'll go through literally like I do with one of my patients at the office. So is that you okay? Wait, no, perfect. All right.
And of course, Dr. Donner will be available at the compassionate certification table to further answer more detailed questions.
So my question was on this woman's behalf here. Would she initially, the person that's on that medication would need to be weaned off of the medication that's different than the cannabis?
So
or
you're
what's
getting,
the
you're getting into
ideal
clinical, you're getting into
qualifier?
clinical things again. I think Dr. Donner again is
I can address some.
to address,
Yeah,
to
If
address.
there's any questions about sort of medicine, the clinical part of this too, I will do my best to address.
I just want to get you familiar, I just want to get you familiar with when you come to the dispensary, the clinical people and, you know, your physician, the certified physician, and our pharmacists have got to work together
Like
to,
a care team together
as a care
to
team.
help.
Will only medical cannabis patients be allowed in the dispensaries, or will
the
the
med-
public be?
oh, yes, okay. I
Anyone
mean,
who's asking questions, either let me bring the microphone to you, or make sure you speak up loudly, or I will repeat the question so everyone can hear.
all right, so the question was, who can come to a dispensary, okay? During the period of January 20th to the 15th, when there's no product in the store, anyone can come in, you can come in and tour the facility, okay? Once product gets into the facility, all right, a caregiver can come, and that's a whole nother certification. A caregiver can come in and get the medicine for that patient. But no, in the medical side of the facility, all right, only the person with the certification card can go in. Now, a person can take them, they can stay in the waiting room, okay, those type of things, but they cannot go into the medical side of the facility.
So you're gonna have limited tours then?
We will have between the 20th and, yes, when you come in, you'll get a tour of the place, you'll be able to sit down with the pharmacist, you'll meet the customer care, and we'll bring you through the facility so you'll be comfortable with what happens on February 15th.
Okay, thank you.
The security requirements of Act 16, the dispensaries, the grow, the cultivation and processing facilities, they are more secure than a bank. They are more secure than a pharmacy. And these are the most secure facilities in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Think of this, okay? When product comes into our building, it goes into a garage, there's armed guards there, we put it into a vault, there's, I'm telling you, don't even try to get in this place. I mean, you're going to jail, I guarantee it. There's cameras around the whole perimeter of the building, there's cameras in every room, so whatever you don't want to, I mean, other than the bathrooms, okay, whatever you don't want to see done, it's going to be on camera. It's going to be worse than but think about it. You can pull up with, go into a pharmacy. They pull up in a van, get out of the van, and walk opioids into a pharmacy.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, security is a major concern for us. Okay, we're going to have 2 security guards there. All the cameras and all that. I mean, people are walking out with something that you may want it for medical purposes, but there's people who want it for other reasons. There's opioids being sold in the street, okay, that, or they came out of a pharmacy and they're not being used what their intended use was. So we are taking that very serious. It'll be a very safe environment that you'll be entering into, okay? I mean, a lot of it will be a cash business, but I mean, there are ways we should be taking credit cards and debit cards, at least when we open. But I mean, there's going to be people coming with cash, there's people walking out with a controlled substance, and we are taking that very, very seriously. And the number one thing that the Department of Health is looking at to get our certification is they're coming in and it's security more than anything else. It will be a safe environment. It'll be a very pleasing environment. Think of a doctor's office and a jewelry store almost. I mean, I'm serious. It's going to be on a higher end of things. And there's going to be display cases, just like jewelry is, and the marijuana's going to be there. You're going to talk to somebody in front of that. So it will be safe, secure, and a friendly environment, guaranteed.
Is there going to be a limit to how many times per day or per week you can visit?
There's a limit on the amount of marijuana that you'll be able to get on a monthly basis.
Okay.
In our system, when you get your limit, or when it comes time that you'll be able to come in again, we'll send you emails out and let you know that, hey, your time's up. Just like, you got 3 refills.
Okay.
In essence, you got 12 refills. Whatever you're allowed that month, when it's time to get the refill, we'll make sure that you know
Is
that.
that state mandated or through your doctor?
That's state mandated under Act 16. And the one thing in addition to that, after we finish our speaking, you can come take a look at my patient identification card. One of the things that this patient identification card has is a barcode on the back. And that barcode is going to be swiped at Saliva Wellness or at any other dispensary that I go to, and it's going to track my monthly limit of available cannabis products. So I will not be able to go to Saliva, make a monthly purchase, and then go to the Healing Center in Washington County and make another monthly purchase, and then go to Keystone Integrated Care in Greensburg and make another monthly purchase, and then go to Cresco Yeltra up in Butler. All of them are going to be on the same real-time tracking system so that the Department of Health and the dispensary owners know when I hit my 30-day limit. So it is designed to prevent pill mill or pharmacy shopping that we have with that we've experienced with the opioid crisis.
In regards to safety in parking lots, cameras in parking lots?
Yes, outside, inside, security guard will be outside. There's gonna be one in the building, one outside the building.
Go to your car.
No, I'm telling you, that is paramount concern for us. Paramount, above all others. There's a lot of parking. Parking? No, it's a parking lot. It's a 7,500 square foot facility. And I mean, matter of fact, we have so much parking that we made a green area out of one area because it's too much parking. And that's the great thing about this is, I mean, Squirrel Hill has been, our relationship with them has been great. I mean, we started early, went there, informed people what was going to happen. Forums like this. One or two people were there that, there's always that one loudmouth group. But for the most part, we have been welcomed by Squirrel Hill. We're happy we're there, and we're really thrilled to get this thing off the ground after months and months and months. I mean, a year and a half we've been with this thing to get to this point, less than a month away.
I can tell you that I live in the neighborhood where Saliva Wellness is opening. It is a very safe neighborhood. Their location is very well lit, very large parking lot. So any patient with safety concerns going to the facility or leaving the facility, you will be impressed at how safe the facility is. It is how well lit and open an area it is. And I can say that I believe that patients will be able to use that facility with absolute confidence.
And all of them, and it's not all of them are going to be, the state is mandating that you have to have security. I mean, and going to our relationship with Squirrel Hill, I mean, it was a blighted building that we took. So we took a blighted building off the market. It's going to be a beautiful facility, okay? As soon as you get off the parkway, you go straight to go to the waterfront, you go left to go on forward on Murray Street. We're right on that corner right there. That was a blighted block. It was an eyesore to go into Squirrel Hill. We're going to beautify that corner now. I'm probably.
Yeah. Of course, Sam will be available to answer any other questions at the Saliva table. I'm going to move forward with our program just a little bit. Sam, thank you very much. One thing that I want to touch on briefly is, as Sam indicated, there is only one cultivation facility that's going to have products available for his dispensary in February. As we start to ramp this program up, more cultivation and processing facilities will have products available, but initially these products may be at a somewhat higher price point. That is not necessarily set in stone. I'm not saying that every gram of hash oil that's available at Saliva Wellness is going to be 50% above the black market or anything like that. But these prices may be a little high initially. Stick with the program. If necessary, the Department of Health, via Act 16, can put price caps on the products that are available. But at least initially, these folks have spent a lot of money to get their facilities up and running, and they're trying to get products to patients as quickly as possible. So that's just something to bear in mind, that the prices that you may see in February aren't necessarily set in stone for the entire existence of Pennsylvania's medical cannabis program.
One more thing.
Absolutely.
I've seen the price list at Cresco Yelta. Their price list is the same, and then we looked at what they're selling in Calder. They're from outside the state coming in. And the prices in Pennsylvania, at least at Cresco is showing us right now, are the same prices that are in other states. So I don't think there's going to be that higher pricing. It might be a little bit more than on the street or something like that. But as far as medical marijuana and what it is across the country and stuff like that, the pricing is going to be the same. A lot of the grows are already in the industry. So they know what they're doing.
Yes, sir.
Insurance coverage.
There's no insurance coverage for medical marijuana products. It is specifically prohibited under Act 16. Now, there may be insurance coverage for the physician visit, depending on how it's coded, but I can tell you that insurance will not cover the cost of the medical cannabis products. One thing I want to do right now is bring up a dear friend of mine, Heather Schuger. Heather has been a parent advocate for her critically ill daughter, Hannah, who suffers from severe seizure disorder. She was one of the original Mama Bears, a group of parents who lobbied very, very hard in Harrisburg for treatment relief for their critically ill children. At some point along the way, some of our conservative legislators tried to pry them away from the rest of the medical cannabis community. Hey, we'll make CBD products available for your children. Hey, what if we have something that's seizure disorder only? And Heather and a number of the other patient advocates said, or parent advocates said, no, we're not walking away from those with chronic neuropathic pain. We're not walking away from our veterans with PTSD. We are advocating on behalf of all Pennsylvania patients. And I just wanted to give Heather a chance to talk to you a little bit about her journey with her daughter Hannah, the caregiver program, the Safe Harbor, and with that, from the Pennsylvania Medical Cannabis Society, Heather Schuger.
Thanks, Pastor. Have to have my phone on me because my daughter has severe intractable epilepsy. I'm actually going to put it here, I can see it.
If anything pops up.
Yeah, she's 24/7 care, as you know. So I began my journey about 4 years ago. Like Patrick said, a group of moms got together. We all have children with severe intractable epilepsy. And basically our children were told they were out of viable medical treatment options. So rather than relocating to another state where it was legal, we decided to advocate for cannabis here for initially our children, and then we realized how many people that would benefit from medical cannabis. So we stayed here and we fought, along with people that have been fighting for years. Patrick, I don't know anybody that knows more about cannabis than Patrick and Teresa. So we stayed here and we fought with people that have been fighting for years, and here we are today. We have met so many amazing people along this journey, other patients that have taken cannabis, have helped their cancer, have helped their chronic pain, have helped their seizures. Melanie, Dr. Donner, amazing people from Compassion Certification Center. I'm actually taking my daughter Hannah to see Dr. Donner on Wednesday. I do have my Pennsylvania caregiver card. I was issued this week. So just real briefly, my daughter Hannah is 14. She has suffered from over 100,000 seizures so far in her life. She was in respiratory failure in May. We have been through countless side effects from seizure medications. 81 sleepless nights in 2016. And you name it, just rage. For 3 years, she quit smiling and laughing. She was the happiest person when she was younger. She used to eat everything. Now she has a G2. However, we have been consistently on cannabis for a year, but we have been trying it for 3 years. But we think that we have found a product that we like for now. I also use cannabis THC spray intranasally when she goes into status, which means we can't stop her seizures with regular seizure medications for emergencies. So Hannah was in respiratory failure. She was no longer walking on her own. She quit. She didn't want to get fed via G2. She basically was a vegetable, and I felt like I was losing her. I made several changes in April and May, and again in ICU, respiratory failure. But if you go on Hannah's Facebook page now, she's walking on her own, and she's laughing. She has laughed when she was about 2 years old. People would say to me, "I don't know how you do it." And I said, you know what? I woke up one day because I used to be really depressed about her condition. Because as a parent, you want your child to thrive. This is not the life that we thought we'd live. But I said, you know what, she laughs every day. I don't know how she does it. She has thousands of seizures, but she's laughing and she's happy. But that all stopped about 3 years ago. But it's back, so that's pretty cool. And we're pretty excited about that. The reason why I just wanted to share that story, because I didn't know anything about cannabis prior to 4 years ago. But being in this journey, it's been amazing. I'm not afraid of it. It's my first drug, if you want to call it a drug, that I'll go to when she's in status. It keeps us out of ICU. We've had life flights, we've had countless ICU stays. But I just wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to let you know that if anybody has any questions on the process of signing up to either be a caregiver or just to be a patient, please feel free to reach out to me. You can, I have some cards out there for the Pennsylvania Medical Cannabis Society. And Patrick is an awesome source too, and knows way more than me, but at least I can help you, on the patient side for as far as me being a caregiver. So I think that's about it. No, that's it.
And if you're a parent of a critically ill child, if you're interested in learning about how to be a caregiver, either for an ill relative or someone else, please come to the Pennsylvania Medical Cannabis Society booth. Heather will be there. She'll be able to answer all of your questions. Before I bring up Dr. Donner to talk about compassionate certification centers, my recommending physician, compassionate certification centers, my wife's recommending physician, compassionate certification centers, and he's going to be talking about their efforts to really bridge one of the barriers to patient access. New York State has a similar highly regulated program to Pennsylvania. And New York has a physician registry similar to Pennsylvania's physician registry. New York estimated that their patient population could be as high as 400,000. Unfortunately, right now, their system is failing because not enough physicians are registered with the program, therefore patients are being shut out of the program. And that is exactly the type of thing that Compassionate Certification Centers is here to do, to make sure that patients have access to the medical cannabis program, even if their primary care physician wants nothing to do with medical cannabis or wants nothing to do with registering with the system. Before I bring Dr. Donner up, I want to remind everybody that we've got a very special guest in town, Killer Priest from Wu-Tang Clan. He's going to be performing at an exclusive after party on South Side at Karma, 1713 East Carson Street. It's $20 for access. We're signing people up over at the Cannabis Legal Solutions booth. If you'd like to come to the after party, come on over. We'll put you on the list. We'll take your money, and then we'll see you. Doors open at 7 o'clock, and the event starts at 8 o'clock. With that, allow me to introduce Dr. Brian Donner, Compassionate Certification Center, and my recommending physician. Do you want this?
Can everybody hear me okay? I'm usually not a microphone guy. People tell me I talk too loud. Anyway, good? Perfect. All right. So quick thanks to Carol. These events are wonderful. We really love doing them. Patrick, as you can listen to him, his knowledge and passion is second to none, and he's just a tremendous resource. So thank you. And to Sam and Heather. Heather's story, and if it wasn't for people like Heather, we wouldn't be here today for this program, right? So typically what I do in these situations, I give a little bit of background about compassionate certification centers and then try to explain the state program from a patient standpoint, what you're going to experience when you go through this, from everything from registering with the state to all the way through to you come and see us and going into dispensaries, okay? So I'm a board certified emergency physician. I've been fellowship trained in hyperbaric medicine and wound care as well. People ask me all the time how I got involved in medical cannabis, and I'm a big clinical researcher. And back in residency, I had done a lot of research on the endocannabinoid system and the science that I could really grasp onto that. And as a practicing ER doctor, I started running into parents, just like Heather, and I started seeing some of the most profound things that I've ever seen. Children who went from hundreds of seizures a day down to 1 or 2. I'll never forget an autistic child I saw who never spoke a word before and was started on medical cannabis therapy, and a week later was speaking. These are things that when you see as a clinical provider, they catch your attention, right? So after that, my partner Melanie and I, we really started looking into the cannabis industry. And as we went from state to state to state, what we found were two things. Number one, as Patrick mentioned, the providers available weren't there to meet the patient demand. There just wasn't enough providers who were either certified or educated in this to do this. The other thing that we found is that lots of these providers, you would go see them, they'd help you get your medical marijuana card, and it was, all right, we'll see you in a year, thanks for coming back. This didn't sit well with us. This isn't how normal medicine and our healthcare system works. So Compassionate Certification Centers was born out of that idea. And what we are is we're a medical cannabis healthcare organization that we have brick and mortar clinics around where we are able to see patients, help take them through the certification process and obtain their medical marijuana certification. But we're also there to help them with their ongoing care, to serve as their specialist in medical marijuana. You don't know how much to take. You're not getting the results that you want. Any questions at all, just like you would call your family doctor or your specialist, that's why we're there, okay? You can come see us. You do not need to have a referral. You don't need to be sent by your family doctor. We accept all patients, okay? So that's basically really the nuts and bolts about our organization. So how does this work if you're a patient and you want to get medical cannabis? So not all doctors can certify patients for medical cannabis, right? We have to take a special class, we pay some money, it's a 4-hour CME course, we have to register with the state, and then we're listed on the state registry. Right now, for example, the other day when I was in the office, there's been probably over 11,000 patients who have registered for the state. There's been over, I think we're up to about 1,800 patients who have been certified. And still right now, we're talking about less than 300 doctors on the registry. So you can imagine there's a demand there that we need to make sure that we can meet. So from a patient standpoint, how does this work, right? There's sort of two parts of this. There's the state part, and then there's the physician part. So the state has a patient registry that is available online through the Department of Health and the state website, where patients need to first go on and register. And what they do is literally, it's as easy as going on with your driver's license or your state ID card. You put in your information, your phone number, your email, and then you're registered with the state from that side, okay?
Dr. Don, briefly, to get to that website, simply Google Pennsylvania Department of Health Medical Marijuana, or go to the Pennsylvania Department of Health, search for medical marijuana. It will take you directly to a very user-friendly, interactive link to then be able to register with the system.
Absolutely, and it is really simple too, like Patrick said, it's very obvious when you get there. So then what happens? After you're registered with the state, then you need to see a physician who is listed on the registry, who is able to take you through the certification process, okay? But the majority of your physicians will not be listed on this registry yet. So that's why organizations like ours are there to help you, okay? So let's say that your family doctor or your specialist is not available. You're able to contact our offices either by getting online or calling our 1-800 number, and then our staff is able to get you set up with an appointment, as well as take you through the process of obtaining your medical records, signing the consents, the release forms, all of this process, just like seeing any other doctor. Okay? So all right, so you're registered with the state, which is great. You registered with us or one of your other doctors. You come see us in the office. What happens there? How does this go? So typically what I do in the office is I explain to patients, just like I'm doing now, the state program, how it works, what happens when you leave here, about getting your card in the dispensaries. And then we go through a history, a physical exam. We make sure that you meet one of the 17 different conditions that are available there. We make sure that medical marijuana is going to be safe for you. And then we try to outline a treatment plan as well, a generalized treatment plan. So then once we're done with our appointment in there, we're able to process your certification. It's really as simple as me getting on the Department of Health's website, clicking some buttons saying that I saw you as a patient, you meet the state's criteria, this is going to be safe for you. I push that certification through, and then I'm able to provide you with a certification number at that point, okay? The final step of this process, which sort of gets some people off a little bit, is the state then requires you to go online to their website where you registered and pay them a $50 fee. That $50 fee is for your medical marijuana card, okay? This is to the state. We can do certifications anywhere from 1 month up to 1 year, okay? That's the longest that basically the Department of Health will let us do a certification. So what happens after that? Okay, you come and see me, everything's great, we push through your certification, you then go online, you pay the state their $50 fee, Usually within, I'm going to say, a week to 3 weeks or so, you're going to get your actual medical marijuana card in the mail, okay? At that point, that's going to let you get access to a place like Sam and Salego or a similar dispensary, okay? Whenever you go in there, as Sam said, there's going to be an additional medical professional there to help provide you with additional guidance on the appropriate product, the route of administration, the frequency, these type of things too. In Pennsylvania, most of you know this already, but the whole flower or the whole plant right now, just right now, is still not available. So you cannot buy a flower or bud of marijuana, and smoking it is still illegal. So they're all available in concentrates, okay? And these concentrates come in basically 3 different types of forms that we can administer patients' medications. The first type that Sam commented about is going to be an inhaled form or a vaporized form. Right? These are going to be in a wax or potentially an oil. And you inhale those, they have a rapid onset of action. You can feel the effects from that quickly, but it might not last as long, okay? The second type is going to be an oral type of preparation, a tincture, a capsule, an oil that's either placed under your tongue or can be swallowed. And that, again, difference between the inhaled route is maybe a little bit slower onset of action until you feel the results, but it might last a lot longer, okay? The third route that's going to be available is a topical route. So a cream, an ointment, a gel, that type of thing that you can, has the medication in it, you're able to put it on a localized area, and then you're able to absorb that medication and get the positive effects, alrighty? People are not pigeonholed in just one type of these, right? There may be a certain preparation that during the day is more appropriate versus something in the evening that's more appropriate. So understand it's not a one or another type of thing. As Sam said, what you will be able to get essentially a 30-day supply within a 30-day time period. I recommend to patients the first time that you go into the dispensary, please don't buy a 30-day supply all at once. If you get home and it doesn't work, or you don't like it, or there's another problem, at that point you can't go back immediately and trade it in or get more. You're stuck sort of waiting till that time. Everybody always asks me, there are some questions sort of about dosing and these type of things. Everybody's medical cannabis treatment program is going to be different. What works for me may not work for you, may not work for Patrick, right? And so this can really be personalized medicine, which is a great thing. All medical cannabis in its concentrations isn't created equally, right? We know that the active ingredients in cannabis, many of them are something called cannabinoids. The one cannabinoid we all know is THC, right? But there's a whole bunch of other ones in there that are super important too. CBD, THA, CBN. And what we found is potentially that these chemicals work in synergy with each other, right? The important thing to remember too, THC is the only one of those compounds that is psychoactive. So if I have somebody like Heather's daughter, or say I have my elderly 92-year-old grandmother, I might want to control the amount of THC in that product as to not impair them or cause a psychoactive effect, right? We also know that different combinations of these cannabinoids work differently for different disease processes, for example. That, what some of the things we have found, that maybe for potentially seizure activities, a higher CBD concentration medication will be absolutely appropriate. But maybe for a chronic pain or autism, maybe we need a little bit of higher component of THC in it. What we're able to do at our offices is work with you as our patients through this process. So you come and see us. 2 weeks later, you're not getting the results that you want. You pick up the phone, you call us. That is able to get to our nurses, to get to our doctors. We can call you back. We can work with your other physicians like you were talking about. So you won't be forced to do this on your own. It won't just be up to you. It's not about just getting your card and then, hey, go to it. You'll feel better. I'll see you. I think that's probably sort of the big 5,000-foot overview from my end. This process can once in a while be confusing for patients because there's so many different steps. Just know that our staff, the PAMCS staff, Patrick's staff, we're able to help guide you through this process, and we all work together. So whether it's us communicating with Salego Wellness about what products are available, what's working, us reporting adverse effects to Sam, Patrick and I discussing potential sort of legal matters, expansion of the conditions. The important thing is that our medical cannabis community, we're all in talks together, we all work together, and we're all fighting for this to be better for our our patients, right? So I guess on that, I'm gonna end, I will gladly answer some questions. You guys can give me the clinical questions if you want to. I'm gonna try not to get any details about treating you specifically, okay? That's probably better suited for a different environment, but yeah, go ahead.
A little while ago, somebody asked about like insurance covering some of the products. You said there's no insurance on the product. About consultation, like say we had to call you and talk about our issue, would that be possibly covered by insurance or?
So that's a great question. Right now, none of this stuff is covered by insurance, and that's mostly because of the federal regulations, right? Anybody who takes federal funding is they're in a tough position right now, right? Because it's the feds say one thing and the states say another thing. So right now, there's no insurance coverage that will cover any part of sort of the medical cannabis treatment. I see that changing in the future, right? Absolutely. When is that going to happen? I don't know. But what our staff and somebody like your case, if you contact our office, our staff is able to sort of walk through things with you, okay? Do you have one of these appropriate 17 conditions? Are we able to get those medical records? Would you be able to qualify? And say if by chance you don't, there are some alternative discussions that we can have with you about potential other alternative therapies that still fall under the medical cannabis window. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, go ahead.
Is there now or expected to be any reciprocity between Pennsylvania and other states traveling?
No, that is actually specifically prohibited under Act 16. There is no reciprocity. Someone visiting Pennsylvania who's a medical card holder in another state will be forced into the black market if they want to use cannabis in Pennsylvania. Some other states will recognize out-of-state cards. Some dispensaries in Michigan will recognize out-of-state cards. But under Pennsylvania law, and it's specifically set forth in the statute, no reciprocity. We would have to amend the law in order to change that.
This is very generic, and I know your person's different. What does a person walk into? What's a monthly supply cost? Is it between $200,000 and $1,000? Like generic?
Generically speaking, between 200 and 1,000. I think that a lot of
No, we get this question all the time. It's a good one.
I think a lot of our license holders, their business plans anticipated a patient spending between $200 and $300 monthly. Because this is all out of pocket, I don't think that it's realistic to expect a lot of patients to be able to absorb $1,000 a month in extra costs. So, basically speaking, think in terms of $200, $300. But again, that's going to depend on needs and tolerance. And unfortunately, these products are not cheap. One thing I can tell you is that we are aware that indigent patients are potentially shut out of this system unless they have assistance. There are nonprofits that are working to find a way to subsidize indigent patient access, to subsidize the cost of medical cannabis products, and we're just going to have to see as that moves forward.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback off what Patrick said, we're all working together, whether it's our organization, Patrick, PAMCS, SIM, we're all trying to work together to make this accessible to all patients, right? Regardless of sort of financial position. And we're able to sort of, I think as the days go on, we're going to be able to provide more of that for sure.
Just an engineer question. So let's say your monthly supply is, whatever, 10 million. So let's just make it easy. So 2 weeks later, I call you up and I said it's not working, and you offer 50. Is that gonna be allowed because you're in the limited monthly supply of whatever you're going to prescribe?
So right now, at this point, once you hit that sort of monthly supply criteria, you're not going to be able to get any more until that monthly supply. That was my point.
The next month?
Right, so my point, that was my whole point of telling you when you go into the dispensary, don't buy the whole month supply at once, right? Because if we need to make some adjustments or do that, then you'll have that ability to go back and we can do that without any issue.
Is there going to be a discount for a monthly supply versus a weekly supply?
That would be up to the dispensary themselves. And the dispensary under Act 16 is prohibited from, offering 2-for-1 sales or, offering incentives for the purchase of medical cannabis products. But that is solely and exclusively up to the dispensaries about how they're going to engage in pricing.
Are people going to be able to write off on their taxes as a medical expense?
That's a question that's in flux right now because on federal taxes, no, you do not get the ability to deduct these expenses. That's something, come and visit us at the Cannabis Legal Solutions and talk to my partner Andy about that a little bit more. But that's one of those issues where, it's Sam, I mean, you're facing that issue where you cannot write off business expenses under your federal taxes. So, as far as federal taxes are concerned, no. State, to the extent that you can take a state tax exemption, it may be available, but come talk to us.
That's okay. Yeah, so if you already have a medical marijuana card, yeah, absolutely. So what I would say, that's a great question. What we're able to do is offer people ongoing care sort of on a consultative basis, right? So literally at that point, it would be as simple as calling up our staff, our schedules. Listen, we'd like to see one of your physicians about, I already have my medical marijuana card, but we'd like some help in our treatment plan. They can set you up at one of our offices. We have sort of a different price structure for that type of thing to make it more affordable for patients as well, right? So we can absolutely help. It's as simple as a phone call and getting on our schedule and coming to see one of our doctors.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think earlier you had said about, if you have a card, you can go to the dispensary, get something, can't go to something, can't go to another one. But say you had said about maybe you don't want to get a month's worth, you want to get a week's worth. So if you get a week's worth here in Pittsburg, you go up to Presque Isle, you're nearly.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely, as long as you don't exceed that 30-day supply. If you want to do a one-day supply at 30 dispensaries, you're more than welcome to do that. So there's no restriction on moving from dispensary to dispensary as long as you're within that 30-day limit. Now, what is defined as a 30-day limit, that is something that is going to be a moving target moving forward. My 30-day limit as a cannabis consumer may be substantially higher because of my tolerance than your 30-day limit as someone who's a new cannabis patient. And that's where we have to work with Dr. Donner, we have to work with the pharmacist or the physician at Solivo or at the other dispensaries to figure out exactly what is going to be an appropriate 30-day supply. If someone told me that my 30-day supply is 2 grams of hash oil concentrate, I wouldn't participate in the program because it simply wouldn't work for me. Yes, sir.
I just wanted everyone to know that this dog here is the only hemp hound that I know of. So,
What does that mean?
huh?
What does that mean?
Hemp hound. But it's funny, a lot of people don't even know what hemp is, and that's kind of how all this got started.
Yeah, hemp is the non-psychoactive cousin of marijuana. Hemp is Cannabis ruderalis, which is high in CBD but extremely low in THC, only trace amounts of THC. Cannabis sativa L is what we know as marijuana. It's what has the psychoactive compound of THC in it. And what we're talking about, the type of products that are at Soliva are going to be products that are derived from Cannabis sativa L, not necessarily, and I don't think you're planning on having any Cannabis ruderalis because that's the type of products that are available widely right now. It is not scheduled under Pennsylvania's Controlled Substances Act. But we're talking about products that will have levels of THC, and what that level of THC should be for you is going to be something to discuss with Dr. Donner and with the pharmacist or physician at Soliva Wellness.
Yeah, and just to piggyback that off that real quick too, okay? Just for you folks, if there's anybody here who has used hemp oil, CBD oil, that type of thing, and has not gotten the results that you want, do not get discouraged from that, okay? It's not going to work just for everything, and that's part of the art about this. It's the combination, what we call sort of the entourage effect of these biochemicals together. So if you don't let that be your judge with regard to medical marijuana therapy alone, okay?
And 1 second, ma'am. The one thing that I wanted to add to it is the clinical research program that's coming down the pike. The Department of Health understands that it needs information and data from the actual patients. So they have set up a clinical registration or clinical research program that will allow license holders to have a vertically integrated system where the license holder has the processing facility and the dispensary, and the patients at that dispensary will have the opportunity to anonymously give their patient information and feedback directly to the Department of Health. And the idea is that the Department of Health will be able to share this information with our physicians, with our dispensaries to say, hey, 90% of the people with post-traumatic stress disorder are reporting, very good effects from this particular product or this particular strain or this particular formulation. The majority of our patients with seizure disorder are responding well to this, but haven't been, quite as happy about this. The folks with chronic neuropathic pain, they really like this type of product over this type of product, so that we can start to build that database in lieu of having the ability to have clinical research under an FDA setting because we're still Schedule 1.
That's absolutely right. And all of us together are collecting this data, whether it's our organization, whether it's Sam's organization, and then by sharing this data and processing it, we can treat people better. Right off of Patrick's point, I just looked at it the other day. I thought it was neat. My wife thought I was crazy. A 178-page document from Minnesota, and it was basically a patient's perspective from the first year in the medical marijuana program, right? And they gave all this data on, okay, the concentrations of products that were bought, what were bought for different disease entities, any adverse effects, so that now we have all that information readily available, and Pennsylvania will do something the same. So then maybe it's not as much of a guessing game as anything else, right? So then we can really get to that much quicker. So it's a key component in this. I'm glad Patrick mentioned that.
And we're not the only state with medical marijuana. There are 29 states in the United States that have a medical marijuana program, and this type of research is going on in every single state. And the medical community needs and is sharing this information. The industry needs this information because what good does it do for Saliva to stock products that patients don't want because they don't have the medical efficacy that they are expecting. So we are not reinventing the wheel here in Pennsylvania. We are adding to that body of information that will enable us in Pennsylvania to make sure that patients have the most effective treatment as possible. Ma'am. No, it is not legal to travel out of Pennsylvania or out of the country with medication. Interstate travel is federally prohibited. Leaving the country would be federally prohibited. Pennsylvania patients are only protected in Pennsylvania unless the state that you're traveling to has reciprocity. There's only about 7 states with reciprocity. I know Michigan is one of them. Massachusetts may be one of them. Nevada was one of them, but now they're full recreational, so it's not really relevant anymore. But you cannot, you have no protections under Pennsylvania law with your medical cannabis card outside of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Sir.
She didn't get a chance to ask a question.
Ma'am.
Mine was going to be about the doctors in the area, the UPMC and stuff.
Well, UPMC and Highmark, they're not telling their physicians they may not participate in the program, but they're not necessarily supporting it either. But UPMC will be participating in the research program. But that's where compassionate certification centers is so critical. Because if UPMC physicians aren't participating, they make up the bulk of your general practice physicians in our area. All we need from your UPMC physician, all I needed from my UPMC physician was my diagnosis, and then I took that my medical records to compassionate certification centers, and they were able to make the recommendation. So if we didn't have entities like compassionate certification centers, UPMC's position would literally be freezing patients out of the market. Ma'am.
In light of Joe Sessions' recent,
I can take it from there.
So my father-in-law's going through chemo right now, and he's under VA healthcare. And it would be really beneficial, but we're scared for him to use medical marijuana that he may lose his mental health care if that's
What she's referring to is last week, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, whom I affectionately refer to as a malignant little elf, he rescinded the Cole memo. The Cole memo was a memorandum that Deputy Attorney General Cole, James Cole, during the Obama administration, authored in 2013 to give guidelines to federal prosecutors about when they should or when they should not intervene in a well-regulated state-licensed either medical or recreational program. It was not federal law, but it was designed as guidelines for U.S. attorneys to utilize their limited resources. If you have a medical cannabis program, but you have money laundering, and the dispensaries are selling heroin, and there's a 50% increase in teen marijuana use, and there's DUIs and interstate trafficking, that's when a United States attorney would want to use their authority to, go after either those participants or maybe, potentially try to shut down a poorly run state program. Here in Pennsylvania, we have a very tightly regulated medical cannabis program. The incoming U.S. attorney in the Middle District, in the Harrisburg area, his name is David Freed. He was one of our representatives who worked on the medicinal cannabis law. And in response to the rescission of the Cole memo, he said, in my opinion, our law, which I helped draft, has sufficient safeguards that I will not be utilizing the resources of my office against Pennsylvania's emerging medical cannabis program. I have reached out to the incoming U.S. attorney for the Western District, Scott Brady, as well as his 2 chief deputies to try to get some similar feedback. I do not believe that the Cole memo being rescinded will affect the VA's approach to medical cannabis at all. It's more a prosecutorial guideline for United States attorneys, and if U.S. attorneys aren't going to be engaged in that type of prosecution, then the Cole memo is no longer, part of that analysis. But nonetheless, the VA across the board has been rather reluctant to embrace medical cannabis, though in states with effective medical cannabis programs, the VA has permitted patients to use medical cannabis. They just will not allow their physicians to make that recommendation. I would say that if medical cannabis would help your father-in-law with the secondary effects of chemotherapy or treating that, to go forward and do that, but perhaps mention it to the VA oncologist first to make sure that they wouldn't potentially restrict services.
And I totally agree with Patrick on that too. That I've had patients too that with the VA, when we've done their certifications and everything, really the VA standpoint from this, from what I see, is just like Patrick said. Their doctors aren't going to be actively involved. They're not going to do their certifications. They're not going to be involved in their medical marijuana treatment plan, but they were not restricting patients from doing that with another physician or under somebody else's guidance.
There's no money in the federal budget to prosecute.
Oh yeah, with Rohrabacher Farr, the budget appropriations amendment, there's a appropriations bill that's attached to the federal budget that prohibits the Department of Justice from using congressionally authorized funds to go after legal medical cannabis programs. The federal budget deadline to pass it has been extended, I think, to later this month. If this amendment is part of the final federal budget, it gives us additional protection. If this amendment is stripped from the federal budget, which is something that the malignant little elf has been advocating for, then we may have difficulties moving forward. What I can say with relative confidence is that here in the Western District of Pennsylvania, I do not expect the United States Attorney's Office to use its limited resources, such as they are, to interfere with our program. We have far too many other issues. I'm a 15-year federal criminal defense practitioner, and what they're worried about are large-scale drug trafficking organizations. They're worried about the increase in fentanyl on our streets. They're worried about wire fraud and economic crimes. They don't have the time to worry about this. So, in my opinion, I don't see federal intervention in our program.
My question, I have the same job as Reverend John, I'm also that, and I'm also going through that same answer with my PCP. Just will not do it. And I just want to know, what are my alternatives? Are they coming out and ask you, or is it going to go some kind of payment that would maintain medical marijuana program?
Yeah, I'll tell you this from the standpoint of our organization, I have never turned anybody away from a financial standpoint ever. That we will make arrangements to be able to do this. If this is something that's going to be beneficial and therapeutic and going to help you, then we will do everything we can on our end, finances aside, to make sure. Now, there's certain things I can't do, right? I can't waive the state's $50 fee. But come and see me, I can't tell you, hey, I'll give you a discount when you go to see Sam, and so they know that they're gonna. But I can take care of that on our end, and I'll tell you this from a compassionate certification center standpoint, that the finances will never limit us. Now listen, I need to pay the bills, I need to keep my lights on, I need to pay my employees, right? But we always try to help our patients, and I've done that since we opened our doors.
Well, what I was getting at is just simply this. I just took CBD.
Yeah.
And I've had neuropathy for the past 10 years. And I cannot even feel my toes. I feel my toes, man. This is the stuff. You better pay attention.
And these are the things that, as a physician, that give me great joy and satisfaction, right? Where maybe in the past that we weren't able to help our patients with traditional health care, right? And now all of a sudden we're giving them an option that's safe, that comes from nature, and that can really help them where things haven't before. And when I hear stories like this, this is what gives me my motivation to do this every day. And we hear these every single day with people helping them. So thank you.
All right, let's have one more question from this gentleman, and then I want to...
Say something before,
Certainly, sir.
free the weed.
Absolutely. That's a whole other matter. Trust me, there are dedicated activists in Pennsylvania working towards full legalization. But in the meantime, we are here to help critically ill patients. Sir. That was the last thing that I wanted to touch on, and it's employee-employer issues with Pennsylvania's medical cannabis program. Act 16, and when I say Act 16, I'm referring to Pennsylvania's medical cannabis law. Act 16 does provide certain employee protections, but it does not require an employer to lose economic opportunity or to unreasonably accommodate the employee. For example, if you are in corrections, if you are in law enforcement, if you are a firefighter, or if you are in some other high-risk occupations such as heavy equipment, mining, or over-the-road trucking, is your employer required to permit you to use medical cannabis? No. However, if there are not those types of concerns, or if your employer does not have federal contracts that require a drug-free workplace, for example, then an employer may not discriminate against an employee merely for being a medical cannabis patient. They don't necessarily need to accommodate medical cannabis use on the job site, but this is something that the Allegheny County Bar Association is actively working on right now, because we have a medical marijuana committee, and on that committee are lawyers who represent employers, and lawyers who do workers' compensation and represent wrongful discrimination or wrongful discharge for Pennsylvania employees. Everybody needs guidance. Employers do not want to be subjected to unnecessary litigation because they don't understand the law. Employees need to know what rights they have and what rights they don't have in their workplace. And literally it could be simply a matter of going from job to job to job. Yes, this job is cool. No, this job is not cool. Come over, visit us at Cannabis Legal Solutions, take our card, and then you can follow up with some additional information. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up right now. We're all going to be out there in the fair area. Please come out and talk to us some more, ask some more questions. If anyone's interested in our exclusive after party this evening with Killer Priest, come over to Cannabis Legal Solutions. We'll get you on the list. We'll take your money. We'll tell you where to go. And what I can say is, first and foremost, thank you to Carol Black and Associates for taking the lead to put patients first. Too many industry events are putting money first. She put patients first. That's why we're here. And we look forward to continue to have additional health and wellness fairs, maybe on days that aren't right after a blizzard. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for coming out. Thank you.